Hello, everyone. Once again, this is our wonderful Executive Speaker Series time, and it's our pleasure and honor to have Marilyn Miller with you from Anaplan. As some of you may know, we had Anaplan partner with us, and we partnered with them this past summer to have e-internships for us. That was such a wonderful privilege for many of our students to get their certification. And in the fall, along with Jack, we had an E2B class and it just went really, really well. So it's an honor for us to have Marilyn with us. She's a Chief People Officer of Anaplan. So I'm going to allow Marilyn now to present and introduce the company and to yourself to us. So thank you, and Doreen will be joining shortly. Thank you.
Well, we'll go ahead and get started. So first of all, absolute privilege to be here today. As I'm the Chief People Officer for Anaplan. I've been with this very, very terrific organization for a little over 3 years. And I've been able to participate in just the growth, the trajectory, the transformation of both our company as well as what we've been able to do for our customers. So I'll set just a little bit of context for what Anaplan does and kind of who we are. Most importantly, the challenges and the problems that we solve for our customer set. And I think a good place to start is, we're a planning company. We're a planning platform, all done in the cloud. It's a SaaS business model, which means our customers pay us a subscription. That's what gives them access to our platform and our planning models. Last year, Gartner, which is a research organization, as they look across the landscape of what are modern tools, modern systems, modern or ways that organizations need to modernize, one of the areas that they focused on was the planning processes within, large global companies. And we were actually part of what got created as a new category called connected planning. And even most recently, they have evolved that to talk about, they call it XP&A. And it's this notion around just extended planning processes and the agility that's required within enterprises' planning processes. My personal, reference to it is perpetual planning. Long gone are the days that you can set a financial plan at the beginning of your fiscal year and assume that the year ahead of you is going to look exactly like you assume it to in that moment. And it's a recognition that today's business requires speed, agility, businesses to be able to respond to uncertainty. All of those things were absolutely true prior to, last year's COVID-19. But then if you think about what happened in COVID-19, it actually just accelerated the needs for enterprises to have better planning processes. Last year showed the uncertainty. Your supply chains were disrupted. Your customers were going through, an extraordinary pivot, working from home, trying to understand and see across their business in a global environment. Your resources were not, as accessible. And so all of this disruption in your businesses really became even a further proof point to why a platform like Anaplan becomes more and more relevant in that particular moment. And I'll kind of further context this with if you think about how traditional companies are actually organized, we tend to have functional alignment. You got your HR function, your finance function, your IT function, your sales function, your engineering functions. And because of the way we've structured companies, we tend to work in silos, and we work vertically more than we tend to work horizontally. And if you think about then the implications on that for your data and information, you can see where data starts to get siloed. You've got multiple versions of the truth. A lot of that data sits on individual desktops. And some of the world's largest and most complex companies still run most of their planning processes in Excel spreadsheets, which are the Excel spreadsheet, lo and behold, older than not everybody on the phone, because it's not older than me, but Excel spreadsheets, the concept of the Excel spreadsheet is more than 50 years old. You know, it wasn't built for scale. It wasn't built for change management. It wasn't built for, complexity. It wasn't built for collaboration. And all of those attributes are required in today's dynamic business. And that's what makes Anaplan incredibly, incredibly relevant in this moment. And I'll give you a little further history on Anaplan. So we've been a commercial business for probably, I think 2012 was our first commercial sell. But Anaplan actually originated out of York, England. Our founder, Michael Gould, spent about 3 years in a barn alone, thinking about these planning and analysis processes and where there was limitations in today's modern companies. And Michael, different than a lot of other entrepreneurs, was actually a mathematician rather than a software developer or a technologist. And he had to kind of back his way into the actual creation of the technology and the platform. But because his background was in math, and he, had sort of identified that these are the problems that scale, complexity, collaboration, change management, scenario planning, the ability to do all that. Our core intellectual property is something called the hyperblock, and or hypercube is what it's referred to as well. But the hyperblock, that's what differentiates Anaplan. The algorithms that are in that hyperblock allow the complexity of data and information, both inside the company and what you're able to bring in, to do massive computation in the moment. So there's something called in-memory. And these billions of cells of data immediately know the relationship to every other cell that you've brought into your model. And so it can deal in the immediacy with that change, with that complexity, with that relationship, and that scenario planning that lets businesses see forward rather than looking backwards, I think is what really differentiates this platform.
Marilyn.
Let me pause there. Hi, Doreen.
Hi, sorry for my delay, everybody. Abraham, thank you so much for introducing Marilyn. So Marilyn, could you share perhaps a specific example of a brand that maybe some of our students might be more familiar with, and describe maybe the business challenge they were facing and how Anaplan provided a solution for that?
Yeah, and I'm actually, and I love talking about this. I'm actually going to use an example that's incredibly close to home for me, largely because I'm the executive sponsor with this customer. It's actually an energy company, and the challenge that they were facing, and Anaplan actually was brought in through the chief planning officer, or through the chief people officer, and it's another signal to every aspect of the company plans. So we are relevant across, every part of a business. But what the energy company was actually facing was that they had aging coal plants, nuclear facilities. They were trying to transition their business into modern energy. So think wind, solar. And they had to try to figure out, how are we going to cost this transformation, and what are all of the aspects that we have to be thoughtful about. So on the one hand, you've got massively expensive physical assets in your plants and in your geographical locations. You have a demographic of a workforce that is aging and getting ready for retirement, and you've got a plan for pension and healthcare and all the costs of the talent that isn't necessarily going to be the talent that you need for more modern energy in the solar, wind, other type of energy models that they were trying to build. So the discrepancies alone, just based on those aspects, when you think about the new businesses that they're trying to generate, they're now competing for talent in what is considered probably not as glamorous of an industry as Facebook, Google, Amazon. So now they're going head to head trying to hire this engineering talent coming out of universities and realizing that that talent's going to care about culture and community and having an impact and being a part of an organization that's doing environmentally responsible, building environmentally responsible business models. And so it was the chief people officer that really pulled together operations, finance, HR, all their business leaders. And they tried to sit down and say, okay, how do we build scenarios and models and really go through the transformation of this company to put ourselves, on a future path with all their potential. And what they realized was all the planning was being done, at the edges and with, different sources of truth in the data, different hypotheses being made off it, not looking at it holistically. And when they could bring the Anaplan platform in, it immediately drove the collaboration and decision making, the scenario planning. The finance team could build models on how fast they could afford to make the transformation. In fact, we used them as a keynote speaker at one of our user conferences because it was a beautiful example of working horizontally to solve a business problem and being able to showcase how the platform actually performed and was able to deliver those kind of results for the customer.
Marilyn, that's a beautiful example. I can see why I'd use him as a keynote speaker. So, as we look at the world of work, and we're all sitting here on a web conference, COVID-19, the current pandemic, has really had a dramatic impact on how work is performed in many different organizations. How does Anaplan help companies become more agile and resilient, for the future?
Yeah, and I think that's it's such a great question because, as we started to get into even our own, how do we pivot and work in a distributed and, a completely different construct for what work meant for us, we knew that in moments of uncertainty, and surprises in your business models, having tools that allow for the transparency, the collaboration, the ability to deal with the complexity of things. And our teams were very much used to, I probably spent 12 weeks out of the country, visiting our various operations, and you learn to work in a much more of a co-located way. And so when we became distributed, our tools became one of the most important things that we relied on to still be able to have transparency, collaborate, solve problems, make decisions, drive innovation. And we saw the power of Anaplan just inside of Anaplan in the way that we had to step back and look at our whole business. We had to make adjustments. We had to identify the most important aspects of our business. And I'll just take what we did in human resources. We had a massive hiring plan last year, and we were very quickly able to pivot and say, okay, let's identify the roles that are most essential to the immediacy of our business. And because of the uncertainty, let's put the rest of the roles on hold. We did that in 24 hours because we could see we had transparency across all the open roles, the ones that we had planned for, the finance team, the business leaders, my team, we were all in the same data, in the same models at the same time, being able to scenario plan and make decisions around that. And it was really those attributes of the platform that enabled our own success through this last year. And it's the same thing that we were able to do for our customers as well.
Unmuting. Thank you so much for those vivid examples. I appreciate that, and for sharing some of the experiences that you're having inside your own work organization. Connections are very vital to your organization's success, as well as they are to other organizations. And at the Graziadio School, we're very proud to be a partner university for Anaplan. And through this partnership, I see my colleague, Professor Jack Shear, in the audience as well. Through this partnership, we created and launched a new class in 2020 entitled E2B Technology and Business Operations. And would you share your reflections on the real world experience learning that transpired for our students and for our partner shared organizations in this?
Yes, and so this, I could probably spend the rest of the time just on this topic alone. Let me, before I get to that, I'm going to step back and share a little bit about like how relevant we think the Anaplan skill set is to the future marketplace. So the year before we established this partnership with Pepperdine, we had actually held a summer internship program out of Minneapolis. And our hypothesis there was, or what we were trying to test for, is could we take, and we had 33 students who had never heard of Anaplan or worked in Anaplan prior to the internship, and could we skill them on the platform in that short of period of time? And so they came in and we, wrapped our teams around teaching them how to build models and to construct those models using data, how you articulate your business problem, what you're trying to solve for, which led to how you built your solutions. And that proved to be extremely effective. And so, to further that, what we wanted to learn next was, hey, can we put it into like university programs and allow teams to have data sets and problems to solve? And could they learn both the business acumen as well as the Anaplan application of that and the platform in real time? And so it was a next sort of step in our, how do we really build Anaplan capability for the marketplace? We have a wonderful partnership with Aon as well. In fact, that was a deal that I was also intimately involved in, because Aon uses it for workforce planning and a lot of the people analytics, people insight part of their business. And so one, the proof point that you can quickly understand Anaplan and make applications with it was proven right away. But what I loved about this program, I got to sit through all of the readouts from what the students constructed. One of the first questions our team asked was, did Anaplan make a difference? And the first thing we heard was, at a certain point, given the complexity of what we were trying to deal with, we couldn't have done it in Excel or any other tool. And Anaplan was the difference maker for the teams being able to construct the recommendations that they had. But mostly what I loved about it was that these teams came together and every team was given the same business, the same set of data, the same set of information, yet they got to very different outcomes. And that what freed up these teams to think about, what's our strategy? What are we solving for? What are our highest priorities? How do we sequence our investments? What do we think about as return on those investments? And what bets are we placing? And so the thing I love about the platform is it allows you to do all those things, but you're freed up to do the rich work of thinking through all of these aspects of business, and now you're just competing on how did the teams come together and collaborate and share information and do decision making and be creative to get to the recommendations that they eventually presented to us. I would have loved to have seen that play out in the real world, and what the difference in business performance would have been based on all of that work. But the collaboration amongst the teams, the way that they came together and talked about their priorities, and I think for me that was the most exciting part of the readouts.
Technology is an imperative in business and in business operations. And this project really allowed students to see that up close and firsthand. And it was an exciting project. And we shared a common customer or client, customer for yours, AON, Aon, your partner, who also is a business partner of ours. So it was wonderful to see that kind of Venn diagram, that commonality occur. I'm going to shift gears, or actually before I do so, I may just put my colleague Jack on the spot. Jack, do you want to go ahead and maybe share some thoughts for you as you were the instructor in this class?
Doreen, hello. Thank you so much. And Marilyn, thank you for joining us. I really enjoyed getting to be the instructor for this course in the fall. I think for me, I was really surprised to see the insights that the students were able to extract from our data set. We were given a very, very large data set, extremely complex, about all of these employees at a company, and what do we do with these employees? It's COVID, who do we keep? Who do we put in different roles? Some of the work could be done in Excel, but like Marilyn was saying, there's an inflection point where it becomes so difficult, and having Anaplan there kind of helps us to be able to pull out insights that are meaningful for management. Like, what do we really do with this data? Can we act upon it, and how does it create value? Using Anaplan really helped. It's kind of uniting all of these departments and all of these spreadsheets that are siloed. It really was the democratization of data, in my opinion. So as an end user, you're really equipped to be able to interact with the data. As a leader in a company, you can dig in and use filters and pivot, and it makes it easy and enjoyable.
Thank you, Jack. Didn't mean to put you on the spot, but you were there, so I thought I would. I'm going to go ahead and pivot again on the question set, Marilyn, for you. As the Chief People Officer, you own strategy and processes related to building and retaining an exceptional team of organizations, of professionals in your organization and in the workplace. As a seasoned CPO, what guidance might you offer to our graduate students who are pursuing advanced degrees in business with the aim of expanding their spheres of influence as values-based leaders and entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I think this is one, it's a great question. And I think today's moment actually, I have a different way of thinking about it. So the last few years, I've spent a lot of time on different campuses talking about the future of work and ways to prepare and think about how work is going to continue to evolve. Last year changed everything. The entire construct of work and a definition of, work is no longer a place. We all, except, the essential jobs, had to figure out how to pivot and work from home, and how do we, connect and create community and culture and grow our careers and invest in our own development and have, a work sort of network of relationships. I think about, all of you sitting here today, and you don't have preconceived ideas about work. You don't have previous work habits that you're, trying to reestablish as the norm. I mean, for me, the March 12th last year was the first day, I think, that we started our work from home. We had shut down all of our offices globally. In the 3+ years that I had been in Anaplan, it was the very first day that I had ever worked from home. And it took me weeks to adjust to not being in an office with, people and the energy and the buzz and, everything that goes around that. What we do, we don't know what the future of offices and work and the way people are going to work, that's yet to be determined. It's the group that I'm talking to today that all of you will have the most influence on. You will not be inhibited by, like I said, all the constructs of, my 25 plus years experience of going to work. You'll demand things out of companies that, when we think about the moment that we're in with, the global pandemic, the social injustice, the natural disasters, the environmental elements. I think it's this talent that's going to shape a new and better future and construct for work. I would encourage all of you be super thoughtful about what's most important and how you want to live your lives with work as an aspect of that, not as the entirety of that. And, I spend a lot of time across the management team and our global workforce on how do we get it better for the future? How do we solve any of the things that were really unsatisfying in the, pre-COVID, the long commutes, the being in the office for the purpose of being in an office? We were all struggling with how do we create better work-life balance and roles that are more engaging and environments where people can bring more of who they are and be authentic and be inclusive around different styles and ways that people want to work. And that's all up for grabs right now. We're still all in a remote and distributed. I expect in the next 6 to 12 months, as many of you, or at least some of you, will be entering the workforce. The new versions of work and the new ways of thinking about it are going to get created. And it's honestly this talent that we'll draw on for the ideas and the insights, the innovation. Like I said, you all have, we can see things through fresh eyes as this talent comes in. Be thoughtful about that. Help us, help your companies and what you decide to do with your careers. Be a voice in helping to see a better and more contexted and relevant future of work. I think about Anaplan. We're going to need modern tools, modern systems. I think this is a very modern platform. And I think a lot of the things, again, that we held on to in the past as notions about the way things got done, it's all up to be rethought and reinvented. And there's no better group than to help shape that than this group of, the talent coming out of universities today.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to open it up to any questions that the audience might have for Marilyn at this time.
Hi, Doreen or Marilyn, maybe before we get to the questions, maybe you can share us a little bit about the different levels of certification that students can know and the possible certification they can get through our partnership with Pepperdine. So that would be really great.
So we have several levels of Anaplan certification. So there's level 1, level 2, and let me kind of talk about more of what those actually mean. Most people come into the Anaplan ecosystem and they learn to build models. And so there's a couple levels of sophistication within the model building. And then as our talent and our ecosystem continues to grow their careers, it leads to things like solutions architects, where you can architect a whole. So now you're kind of looking at how you're bringing together all the models that might be being built across an enterprise. And usually at that level, you're considered a master Anaplanner. So there are different designations in ways that, again, as we're looking at the ecosystem of talent, like where you come in, how you can continue to grow, extend, develop your skill sets and capability, and then what that can actually lead to in terms of a career. I'll tell a quick story there. We had every year we do what's called the users conference, and my very first year with Anaplan, we probably had 1,500 between our employees, our customers, and our partners. And one of the keynote speakers was a master Anaplan model builder. He was actually with Bank of New York Mellon. And he talked about, like, he went and got, he was interested in Anaplan. He got skilled, was able to influence people within his own department of, hey, there's a better way of doing our planning. So he builds this reputation of, solving complex problems, connecting data, faster, better decision maker. And so Bank of New York Mellon continues to elevate him, and he continues to get promotions. Well, about 3 months after a user conference, he reaches out to Frank Calderoni, who's my boss. He's the CEO of Anaplan, and proceeds to tell him the number of inquiries that he got from customers and partners that were sitting in the audience asking if he would come do for their companies what they heard him say that he was able to do for Bank of New York Mellon. Long story short, he ends up moving to California and runs a huge area of Google for Anaplan, for the inside work that they're doing using the Anaplan platform. And so, we have so many of these stories that where, people that want to solve complex problems, they want modern and new ways of doing it, skilling themselves. And we've got lots of different ways through Anaplan Way, through our Anaplan community, what we're doing with universities. We have a few more relationships that we're starting to curate as well for getting skilled on Anaplan. Last week, I had a meeting with our internal team. They did a quick, if you just do a scrape on Indeed and LinkedIn, there were several thousand jobs posted requesting and looking for Anaplan skill set. And I think a lot of that's because companies are recognizing we need to pivot quickly to these attributes of agility, collaboration, real-time decision-making, scenario planning, connecting our data, modeling the kind of the digitally encoding what their businesses are and having a way of being able to model that. So I see, I'm biased, but I see a bright future for, the talent that, wants to work in that kind of a dynamic and agile way. And as a default of that, and what I realize is our own internal talent that works in Anaplan, works in our platform. So we have Anaplan for Anaplan. Their business acumen, their ability to see things holistically, the ability to connect data and dots, get the insights, are just, it's such a, it's not just a high demand skill, but it's richly rewarding in the way that you actually do your job. You're not working in isolation. You're not looking at a two-dimensional spreadsheet. You're contexting it in the business. You're putting it into perspective. You're, thinking critically about the way that you construct it. And I think it just leads for a much more enriching and exciting career for folks as well.
Thank you, Marilyn. And I know we are so excited to be getting ready to offer yet again our second class offering of the EDB Technology and Business Operations coming up in the fall. And our students will undertake some of that initial certification in advance as a prerequisite. And I don't believe it was very burdensome, Jack. I know that you were engaged with some of those students during the summer and then got them pretty well onboarded quickly
Right.
in the fall.
It's an interactive and a fun training. I saw a question from someone in the audience about if you're fluent in Excel, how easy is the transition? Actually, a lot of the language is similar to Excel. So I would say if you do know a little bit about Excel, it helps. What's cool about Anaplan, though, that's a little bit different from a technical perspective, if you are familiar with Excel, Excel is very two-dimensional. We have an X and we have a Y. It's the intersection of those, and we have a single calculation in Excel. In Anaplan, we're literally creating engines and processing areas so that we can have multi-dimensional, much more complex calculations that are more representative of an actual business environment. So I think that kind of answers that technical question that we got. But it's fun. The training videos that you go along with to get the certification, level 1 and 2 is what's recommended for the course. It's about 20 hours, I think, for the first, and maybe 25 to 30 for level 2. And it's enjoyable. I know Marilyn can speak about this as well, but there's a new learning platform that recently came out, and I think it's even more immersive and enjoyable.
And just to further that point, it was built off knowing that the transition was going to be from Excel to Anaplan. We even in the first internship that we ran a couple of years ago, students came in with a high degree of proficiency on or in Excel, and almost to a bias. So I actually flew out. We hosted this in Minneapolis. So I flew to Minneapolis the day that we kicked off the internship, and just talked about the company and why we were making this investment and what to expect in the experience of being with us for the 11 weeks. And I ended up getting into an open dialogue, and it was almost like there was energy in the room to prove they were so in love with Excel, to almost prove wrong that nothing could be better than Excel. So I asked him to kind of hold that thought. And at the end of the 11 weeks, the entire management team, so Frank, myself, the rest of the C-suite, we all flew to Minneapolis, and we spent a day and a half. And the students, talked about their projects. Every single one of their models ended up going into production. And without exception, they all said, I won't work for a company that doesn't have Anaplan. Now that I've been in Anaplan, I don't want to be in an environment. And we were able to place everybody either within Anaplan or within our ecosystem with a partner and a customer. So that was kind of rewarding for all of us. I see the next question. As Chief People Officer, how has their strategy changed with the rapid growth Anaplan is experiencing? So when I think about my job and what I'm accountable for, I own the capacity. So how much talent do we have to deliver against our business strategy and business plans? I own the capability. So I need to make sure that we have the right, not just the right number of people, but they also have the right skill set. And I've got to forecast that 2 or 3 years down the road in terms of how's the business going to change, and how do I need to think about the talent that we're bringing in that will be ready, as the business continues to mature. So I've got capacity, I've got capabilities, and then I've got to do that at the right cost. And so how do we structure an organization where the composition of the talent is appropriate? So do I have emerging talent that we're building for the future? Do I have skilled talent that can operate in the business model that we're in today? Because we're high growth, do I also have talent prepared for those next stages of growth? They've seen that, pivot between a $450 million and $1 billion and a $2 billion company, and kind of what combination of and configuration of the company. So as if that's not challenging enough, and we do all this, obviously in Anaplan. And so we model cost, capacity, capability. What's been interesting is because of COVID, it now opens up, it changes your access to talent. We've proven that we have the agility and the resiliency that people don't have to be in an office. So I'm no longer limited to just today where we've got a global footprint in, large offices. I can look at talent anywhere in the world. So the new distribution of talent gives me access to new capabilities. In some cases, it also changes my cost mix. we tend to be in high cost areas. Our largest offices are San Francisco, London, Paris, Tokyo, Singapore, with some satellite offices in Minneapolis and York, England. But in a new paradigm, we can now recruit anywhere. Really, we can go to where the talent is. That also, that opens up all sorts of doors for us around diversity and inclusion, and access to the world's best talent. And so those are all things that my team and I, along with the management team, think about on a daily basis. And then when I think about that growth, how much talent can we skill ourselves versus how much of that talent do we need to continue to acquire for the marketplace? I expect over time that skilling our own talent, so how we engage with universities to bring that talent in and let our talent grow their careers from inside. Those are the things that I, and my team start to think about from high growth. And then there's, acquisition strategies. Year before last, to accelerate our growth and our predictive analytics and our artificial intelligence, we purchased a company in Tel Aviv, Israel. The company was Mintigo, and overnight we picked up 75 highly skilled data analytics, predictive insights, a whole company. And that really accelerated our time to market for some of the components in our platform that that we wanted to make a strong investment in.
So Marilyn, maybe you could share with us a little bit. I'm seeing some of the questions on the other feed, and they're looking at internal innovation in terms of how you're expanding your product offerings into the marketplace, not just in terms of the number of customers, but the modules and or the problems that you're able to solve with that. How is your organization addressing the business challenge of the innovation imperative?
So I'll talk about this from two aspects. One, at our core, customer centricity. We listen to our customers, and it's not just our sales team, our product team, our engineering team, our management team, our customer success team. We get out there and really understand what are the hardest problems that our customers are trying to solve for, plan for? What are their biggest, business challenges? And how do we ensure that as we invest in our platform, we're prioritizing the things that will matter most to our customers? And we have executive advisory boards where we bring customers in. So that's one aspect of it. And then just internally, the dialogues that we have around our own innovation, where the platform can extend, how do we prioritize the roadmap, and it's not just a feature set or capability set, but as we try to think out, 3 to 5 years, 10 years, what are businesses really going to demand? And I'll tell you, Michael Gould, who did this, started this company, more than a decade ago, had the insight and the fortuitousness to say agility, scale, flexibility, collaboration, single sources of truth. Like, that's coming. Businesses will no longer be able to operate in a paradigm of annual planning processes. And so how do we keep that innovation and that idea generation? And we spend a lot of time internally having these kind of conversations. And it's not just the product and engineering team. I participate, my team participates, because we try to be thoughtful across all aspects of the business. So innovation isn't limited to just product and engineering, where sometimes you can think that that's where innovation comes from.
Thank you. So I'm looking around. I think we're running towards the end of time right now. We've got just a few minutes to close out. And before I give the closing remark, I wanted to invite you to, is there anything else that you would like to share or depart upon our audience before we close the session?
Yeah, and again, thank you so much for including me. I love to get these kind of opportunities to not just talk about Anaplan, but and you can probably hear the energy and the passion in my voice. You know, find that, find your energy, find what drives you and what, you know, what gives you passion for you know, the work that you pursue. You're in a great moment, like I said, of really being the talent that's going to shape the future, and help us create something new out of, you know, where we've been. And so be thoughtful about that, and be active around it. And, you know, I wish you all the best of luck. And like I said, it's just a privilege to get to partner with really prestigious programs like this one.
Marilyn, I'd like to thank you very much for sharing your time and your knowledge and your expertise, and enlightening us on this emerging software as a service category called connected planning, which Anaplan pioneered. Economic historians have long argued that innovation has been a profound engine of growth, irrespective of the broader economy. And certainly we're seeing that right now in this current pandemic. More specifically, technological innovations, artificial intelligence, cloud computing, machine learning, big data. These are words that we can't help but see every day in our news feeds. So we thank you very much for bringing the discussion here to this guest speaker lecture. And we look forward to seeing and working with your organization again in our upcoming fall class. And for students that are interested in learning more about that class, please reach out to your academic advisors as they can share information on prerequisites. So without further ado, I say thank you and wish everyone a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.